amateur, pro, master graphic design. You might feel like your work is somewhere on that spectrum, but what do real graphic designs look like in these three categories? We're first going to look at business cards. Now, when I say amateur in this video, it doesn't necessarily mean a bad design. It's more of an entry-level or beginner type of design. This card is actually really neat, but we need to think about context here. What is the purpose of a business card? It needs to inform someone about your business or your client's business, and it needs to be memorable and impacting enough not to be chucked away or lost by whoever receives it. This design here is somewhat forgettable, albeit neat and technically okay. The information is easy to access and it's a decent design, sure. But then we look at this card, the Pro design, we can see how this would be more impacting. If you were handed this by someone, it would for sure be a unique thing to hold and to look at. The texture, the translucent finish, the design itself being really neat as well. This card just has a greater chance of leading to business for those reasons. But you're probably asking yourself, how can that design even be topped? Like, what is the master design looking like? It isn't just what it looks like, but what it relates to. This design is smart, it's memorable, and importantly, it's relevant. The business card is for a photography business, and most of the card acts like a viewfinder on a camera. If you had this in your wallet or your purse, you'd feel like you have the details of one of the most professional and unique photographers in your hand. You can imagine whoever you give this to would play around with it and maybe show their friends, which is the ideal outcome. So yeah, this is a truly master level design and we love it. So next, we're going to look at 3 designs that aim to advertise a clothing brand or like a fashion kind of brand. We're going to see what the amateur, the pro, and the master designs look like in that niche. Starting with this design right here, the amateur design. Now this design does a few things correctly. It has a strong color palette. The text is somewhat neatly laid out, and we have a nice balance between the focal point of the clothing and then the information on the right. It's an okay design. It's just typically amateur. I would change the font choices, edit the layout in some areas, and a few other things. But a pro design, well, that would aim to do a whole lot more than just that. This design firstly has a real person on it, and that makes it instantly more relatable to whoever sees it, thus increasing sales and interest into this fashion. The design has a stronger visual language than the previous one, where we have a very urban and youthful vibe happening here. That is made up of graffiti-style graphics, modern sans serif fonts, bright colors, and all of this plays into that youthful target audience. So the design is basically more advanced and more thought out compared to the previous one, but this design is still kind of messy and a bit poorly laid out. This design, however, for Off-White smashes it right out of the park. Again, we have a person who represents a target audience, but the design is a lot cleaner. The focal point is front and center, and the palette is more refined as well. It's very clean, very crisp, and yet we still have a strong urban and youthful visual language happening. It just hits different. This is the master level design of this section for sure. So when you've got your design, you've finished your work. When it comes to pitching that design and showing it off, there are different tiers and different skill levels even in that kind of field of work. So here we have the amateur approach of showcasing or pitching a logo design. Now for this pasta logo presentation, what do you think might be missing here? Or why do you feel like it's only amateur level? I mean, we do have the logo shown on clean and relevant mockups. The presentation itself doesn't look bad as such. But the key thing missing really is background information on the project, the clients, and the logic behind the logo design itself. We are simply shown the design and we're not given any background information on how it was made or why it was made. And this is a failure to demonstrate knowledge on the designer's part. If we however look at this presentation, the pro level presentation, we start with the logo shown at the top again, but then we have some brief background information on the client and their business. This gives us some context, and then we do get to see the logo in different situations and on different mockups. But still, this is only a pro level design. As much as it does look slick and crisp, we probably do have too many mockups and too many views of the logo. After you've seen it, say 10 times, you don't really need to see it again. And also the designer has failed to provide any logic or anything in terms of the process they went through in making the logo itself. That's where the master level presentation comes into play. So again, we start with the logo at the very top and then some information on the client below. But if you read here, we have crucial logic and reasoning behind the logo design itself. It says about how it aims to solve certain problems for the client. And this is taking things to that next level, and it's a really useful thing to include here. We also have some information on the color palette choice, which is shown in bright and clean graphics. And as we scroll down, you will notice that the designer hasn't overloaded us with too much to look at. It uses just the right amount of visuals to show us what we need to see before it gets too kind of overbearing. So next, we're going to look at 3 tiers of landing page design, as of course, again in the amateur, the pro, and the master level. Here's the first design, and obviously, yeah, this is a template. But why is this just an amateur design? Well, it's not really inspired, is it? If you landed on this landing page while scrolling the internet, would you feel encouraged to learn more about this breakfast or whatever it is? We have a generic illustration matched with generic layouts. This will not capture attention or lead to many sales at all, and so we must move on to the pro level landing page design just to see what it's all about. So this is a very cool and a very neat landing page for a tech-based company. The design is very modern. It uses highly modern fonts, clean graphics, and a modern color palette. And it just looks professional, simply put. Now, I would prefer the call to action to be maybe a different color, as it does kind of get lost on this design, and the layout is a bit cramped in some respects, but it's still miles ahead of the previous design we just looked at. And looking at this design, I am more inclined to learn more and see what the company has to offer and what they're all about. But how does the master level design improve on this already pretty good, pretty decent design? This design is really a masterpiece. And yes, sorry about the quality of it, I just couldn't find a better version. But notice how the layout is cleaner than the previous one. There is a better use of white space, which is really crucial when it comes to websites or landing page designs. And that's because the user can navigate the page and access the information a lot easier. The CTA also stands out more here than the previous design, mainly because it has more space around it than anything else. I love the crisp and the fluid lines on this design, and the palette is really strong as well. But do you agree with the rundown of these designs in terms of the 3 tiers that we spoke about? Let me know with a comment in the comment section below. But if you want to learn more about graphic design and perhaps move up a tier or 2, then just click the video on screen. But until next time guys, design your future today. Peace.